and to really say to everyone on this meeting that it is time that we bring the issue of domestic violence to City Hall, because it needs to be addressed on a more deeper and profound um, in a more deeper and profound way. Yes, there is legislation already in place, but we know that it definitely affects our communities in ways that it does not affect other communities. And when we go seeking help, we are sometimes double victimized. Um, and made to feel like we are the reason why we are being harmed and put in harm's way, and as well as our children. And then oftentimes ACS gets involved, which then is another crisis on top of a crisis that we as Black and Latinx women face in not only in New York but around the country.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I want to, as I said, we have some women who have gone through domestic violence and still is going through it through, family issues or whatever have you. But I want to ask you, have you gone through domestic violence?
Mm, domestic violence takes in itself in many forms, and I'm going to say yes, because my first son's father, um, there was a decision that was made by me that I wanted something different for my life,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes people don't want that different for you.
Right.
Um, and so yes, he's hit me several times, but again, I come from a family of brothers. I'm the only girl. And so I never thought of myself as a victim because I fought back. But I believe it was definitely domestic violence. Well, not domestic because we weren't living together. Intimate
So
partner,
intimate partner violence, right? Mm-hmm.
intimate partner abuse. Some to the point where my son was 1 year old and I had decided to go back to get my bachelor's, and I was walking on 125th Street, and literally in front of my campus, the Rosa Parks campus, which was a satellite school for the College of New Rochelle, he was trying to stop me from going inside the building.
Mm-hmm.
The security guard had to come out, and he asked me if I was okay, and at that time I'm like, you always have that hearing, the voice of your parent in your head. Whatever goes on in your house stays in your house, even if it's public, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, I'm fine. And he said, no, you're not. He opened the door, he told me to go into school, and then I turned around and he was telling my son's father, if I ever see you around here, I'm going to F you up and I'm going to have you arrested. And so, he was an upstander for me. He saw me being bullied. He
Mm-hmm.
saw me about to be physically harmed, and he stepped in for me. And with that, um, that's what we need more of. And a lot of times people don't want to get involved into domestic violence situations because, yeah, there have been times where the Good Samaritan has been harmed. But
Right.
the right thing to do, even if you don't want to step in physically, you need to make the phone call to 911. And even with that now, as Black and Latinx people, we don't want to call the police because then we feel like that can escalate to a death. So to
Right.
answer your question, yes, I have experienced domestic violence
Right.
or intimate partner abuse.
Right. Thank you for clearing that up. So, mostly everybody know me besides the people, your family and friends that came on. I am the CEO of, as you see, We Are Phenomenal Women, and I believe um, a lot of our people don't know the difference of, like you said, intimate partner violence and domestic violence, um, physical, mental abuse, spiritual abuse. They don't know all the breakdowns. So a part of my organization, I educate people and speak to them about it. So this is why a lot of the ladies that's on here, we are very passionate about this type of silent, because like you said, what goes on in my house stays in my house. This silent, I want to say silent virus, because it don't just affect you, it affects the children, affects the home, and then our children become baby bullies. Well, you know, the birth of, of a bully,
it
right?
carries into the schools.
Exactly. So with that, I know one of the ladies that want to share, she is actually on her lunch. So I would ask Melissa to please unmute yourself and share your story and the cause. Why are you so passionate about domestic violence?
Hello, everybody. Um, so my journey into navigating this whole, domestic violence issue in our communities just comes from my own situation. I'm currently in a divorce matter with my ex-husband, and I'm fighting custody for my kids. And it's just a lot of things that came up with my own case. One of the first things was when I was seeking help from a lot of non-for-profit organizations, because I crossed county lines due to safety concerns. It's like I couldn't get help on either end. The county that I left told me that they couldn't help me because I left the county. And then the new county that I came back, well, not new because I lived there before, but the county I came back to, they said, well, we can't help you either because your case is in the other county. So that's one of the biggest, that was like a major loophole for me, because I'm like, and mind you, I mean, thankfully, financially, I was pretty okay. I did lose. I was in the process. I had 2 jobs at the time last year. I was leaving one job to take on a new one, but I was working at both places. I lost both of my jobs because of the criminal case that had ensued. And I had support of family, but I was just imagining for myself, oh my God, imagine if I was a mother out here with absolutely no family support, no type of funds. Like, how would I have navigated through that whole situation? And it's only through a miracle that I was able to still maintain my 2 kids, leaving the county and all of that, because my ex was just on a mission. He wanted to immediately show like, oh, well, no, I could take care of the kids. I have money. I'm working. He wanted to show his stability. But thankfully, of course, just knowing resourcefully, I went on unemployment. I was unemployed for 8 months. And just going through that whole experience. And then the first incident for me was like in September, but it wasn't until months later that it's like I started now to feel the pinch and burn, like financially, because I'm in court. Then COVID happened. Things started to get delayed, but every month, the months are passing and we got to pay lawyers. Even my children now, they have an attorney. So, and I wasn't working. So it's like the little bit that I was getting from unemployment, that had to suffice me with my house bills, my children's costs. My son had to do a lot of dental work this past year, like just things that were coming out the blue. And because of all of those personal issues, that just caused a burn in me. I said, this just can't be it. These solutions that are out here with these non-for-profits and stuff like that, I'm like, it gotta be better than what I was offered, during this time. So that's what has pushed me now to learn. I knew Shanice already for a little bit before that, but knowing the work that she did, that's how I reached out to her and said, Shanice, you do these classes, I got to learn more for myself, get educated on the signs and try to get to some solutions. I am a woman of influence. I'm all about community and impact, and I meet a lot of women. I host financial workshops throughout New York City. I've been doing that the last 4 years. So any information that I could get to better myself, and then of course to empower and help another woman, that's basically my aim and goal. And that's what I plan to do with this, becoming a domestic violence advocate and just learning more towards the cause.
Right. So do you have any solutions or anything that you could bring to the table that will help help the mission? For example, speaking about hospital situation, if you could
Yeah.
just briefly speak on that and what happened to, for example, in a
Yeah.
hospital situation, and what can we do to help the victims of domestic violence in the hospitals?
So I've worked in the healthcare system over 16 years, different boroughs throughout New York. And I've seen now personally, especially these last couple of months, I've seen DV victims come in, and it's been tough to safeguard like their safety when they're in the hospital. So they're coming in, they were just attacked, and some way, somehow, I've seen the abusers then come to visit them or have access to like visiting them. It's like a weak system to protect them then from like whoever had potentially abused them. So one thing that I thought about was just like how you come in, point of entry is usually the ER. You could come in and they give you those financial notices, like, they give you the HIPAA notices, which is regarding your medical privacy. They give you financial notices as far as, okay, you'll come in and get treated. And if you don't have insurance, you're gonna owe this, that, and the third, you sign off on all of that. So something that came to mind, I said, oh, why not have like a general notice, like a domestic violence notice? If you are a victim of domestic violence, these are some resources. You have access to an advocate. You don't have to, you just have that someone that could like hold your hand through that process. Because I know some hospitals, they have those domestic violence advocacy programs, but it's to let the person know as they're coming in indiscreetly. Because another thing too, a lot of these women or even men, right? In some cases it's men as well. They might be coming in for another instance. It could be something with their child being sick or something like that. And now they'll have that opportunity if something is going on at home and they haven't been able to relay that to anybody, getting that piece of paper that's like a general paper that everybody gets, they can have some information, even to like to the nonprofit organizations that they may not know about, or some numbers to the DV, domestic national hotline, stuff like that. So I thought that would be a good idea. Like that's something that, along as you're giving with the HIPAA privacy and the financial stuff, give everyone that comes through the ER that document as a way of them navigating through if they do have that issue in their household.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Simpson, you have any comment to that one? You on mute.
I always want to be respectful of people, so that's why I immediately mute when I finish speaking. So yes, we should have policy in place where someone who comes into the hospital or who seeks immediate refuge is able to get some type of protection from the hospital that will give them documentation when they go to, let's say, Safe Horizons or other organizations that will immediately put them in a place of safety. So that does make a lot of sense. Melissa, is that what you received when you went to the hospital, or is that what you want to receive, or you think should happen?
No, I think that's something that should be put in place. That they don't have that in the health systems that I've been in.
Right. And especially, and it may be off record, but it doesn't happen in our local hospitals. Like I'm very sure it doesn't happen at Harlem Hospital. And I don't think it happens in Lenox Hill, because a lot of times, I know when I lived on the east side, the hospital I went to was Lenox Hill. And over the course of the years, they've gotten less friendly to people who look like you and me. And so that should be something that put in place through City Hall, because they are the ones who help legislation go through in our city that affects our everyday lives.
Right. So I saw Ms. Wanda put something up. Do you want me to read it, or you want to go ahead?
I'll say it. Currently in city hospitals and most hospitals, if someone is hospitalized, it's a little different with the emergency because they're not really in the hospital. But if they are hospitalized as a result of domestic violence, the family or the victim should notify security. Then what's put in place is If you have an order of protection, a copy of the order of protection is given to, where they go to visit, sign in to visit. And then what happens
Excuse me.
is the victim's name that entered into the system is entered as an alias. So they do have some procedures in place, but like all domestic violence procedures, they need to be strengthened because the individual can still get into the hospital, but there is something in place for that.
Right, and especially if the assailant has access to their children's phones, right? So mom might be under an alias in the hospital, but if the person calls the children on their phone, 9 times out of 10, the children are going to give that information up. And so that is one of the reasons why the policies and laws need to be strengthened to protect us more, and especially with children, because recently Shanice and I just spoke to someone who, well, I know I received it in a message that the abusers, it's like a person advocate was able to have her information, her home address, but the assailant, but the abuser could not. So, but that's like you still have the abuser having that information.
Mm-hmm.
How is his advocate, the advocate have the information to where she resides and he doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
And a judge did that. A judge allowed that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I'm trying to understand what you're saying. You're saying the advocate had the information.
The judge allowed the advocate to have the woman's
information.
home address.
Right. And the abuser, how did he come into play?
Because the advocate for the abuser,
oh, the abuser
was giving the domestic violence survivors,
and that's the information. That's the issue.
Right. So this is why, we come together to find out
the confidentiality is
right. And how can we strengthen these things? Like, because our main goal is to prevent another person from dying, educating as many women and men about domestic violence, and what can we do with these laws and strengthen them. Maybe they need to see 1,000 purple shirts. I don't know. Maybe they need to hear our voices. A lot of our Caucasian folks, women, men, will come together and make something happen. This is our time to come together and make something happen, because it does not just stop with them. It is with us too. All around the board. You got same-sex who going through domestic violence as well. We need everybody to come out. Different shades, creeds, race, to come out and say, listen, enough is enough. And this is where we at. We need our voices to be heard. A call for action. Yes, Melissa, would you want to say something else? Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I think the bigger loophole too is it's like at the end of the day this is all New York State. Like, it just boggled my mind when I had crossed the county line. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There needs to be also better communication
all around the board
between the organizations and everything like that, because think about it, a lot of times too, that safety is a major concern. People are trying to leave out of these very unsafe situations. So more than likely, they're might have to cross a county line, not necessarily state line, but a county line. So because they go over to the next borough, why should they be barred now from getting help?
Getting services.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the next thing that we need to work on. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Emergency services, which they do provide, but not in a way that doesn't penalize the abuse, the person being abused.
Right.
It's like, it's almost like, again, being double victimized when you go into these shelters, right? You can't have, you have to, it's like you have to have a curfew. You have to have they have to have, every place you go, while you're going there, it's almost like you are not a person who can make sound decisions because you are a victim of someone else's rage, and that's unfair.
Let me interject there. The purpose of the curfew is required by the funder. The
Right.
funder, and once a person goes into a DV shelter, that person is the responsibility of that program. If something happens to that person, the point of entry would be the program. And so all domestic violence programs, and I'm only speaking about domestic violence, is to provide safety and confidentiality to the victim. That's why the curfew is in place. It's
But
not
it's
really to control them, but to make sure that they're safe.
But it's still racist. I still think it's a racist policy because you don't. I'm safe in my home. If I get home if I go home and I close my door and I lock my door, I am safe. It is when I open that door and I allow someone in, then I put myself and my children in harm's way. So the people who are running these programs have I believe that they have these ideas that the people who they're servicing should be monitored in a way that is almost like a person who is coming home from prison into a halfway house.
Let me give you a scenario, and this is a true story. There was a young woman. I've been working in domestic violence emergency housing programs for the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so this individual, she went out, she was sneaking around seeing the abuser. She went out to see him. This was in all of the papers. She went to his house and he ended up murdering her. The shelter didn't know what happened to her. And after 24 hours, we have to report at her as a missing person. So again, the point that when a person is missing, they look at the program. And as far as it being racist, that is nationwide. So Black, white, Indian, all shelters that house victims of domestic violence have those rules. So we need to be clear on that. You know what I mean? We need to be clear on why these rules are in place. What are some of the things that have happened that made it possible for these rules to be in place? And personally, I don't think it's racist. I think it's to protect the person. Because see, when they come into shelter, they're already told, okay, this is what's gonna happen. Are you in agreement with this? They sign the paper. Yes, I'm in agreement with this. And it's all about protecting the victim, you know. So I think we need to be, you know, clear on and fully understand the procedures that's in place to protect people now, but we need to strengthen what's out there.
That's right. I want to definitely agree with that. I know it may seem like we are priding into someone's freedom, you know, because my goal is to be a owner of one, and I definitely would like to have those same rules implemented, because you got to remember, if something happened to an individual, then it's going to affect the whole dynamics of the shelter and the funding, and you know. So I know there's one around me, and the gentleman had told me that a lot of the ladies can't even speak to people outside. And I was like, what? You know, and I felt some kind of way, but then again, I was like, I kind of understand, because sometimes we get too comfortable and be like, yeah, because I'm over here at this domestic violence shelter. But you just, by you saying that, and people didn't even know that was a domestic violence shelter, now it put a whole other, well, you
You
know,
put other people in
over here,
danger.
you know, it put everybody in jeopardy. I would say that.
And also that you don't know who knows who. You know, just because you come from the Bronx doesn't mean that the batterer doesn't know anybody in Brooklyn. So that is common, that the clients are told, do not talk to anybody on the street, on the block. Don't get friendly. But it happens.
It happens.
You know what I mean? It does happen.
Nigeria has her hand up, I think.
I
just wanted to say, I agree with Wanda and I agree with you, Shanice, and I understand what you're saying, Sheba, but anybody who enters into a shelter voluntarily needs their help. And like Wanda said, you're told what is going to be the rules there. So when you go in, you basically need the help. You have a shelter is a last resort for everybody. But the problem is, it's just not even enough domestic violence shelters that cater to that need. And that's all I have to say.
okay.
Can I ask something?
Wait, hold on, because Joanna got her hand up.
Joanne has something to say.
Go ahead.
And also, I just wanted to add, as living in a shelter myself, the mindset you go in the shelter is not the same as you have when you're outside. Because I remember me when I went to the shelter, I was so scared of even being on the street that I would not, like second guess like the rules or whatever. I didn't want nobody to know where I was. I didn't want to be seen on the street. I wasn't trying to miss no curfew because I didn't want to be outside, period. So we have to also consider all of this, because we might think that the people are feeling a certain kind of way and they're not feeling that way.
Thank you for that, Joanna.
Yes, so we're going to move on to Shavana. Please, sis, share your story and what is your passion to this purple rain?
Yes. So in my hand is police reports, ACS clearance letters, petitions, and orders of protections that were all set on temporary, never final. And my abuse issue started in 2011. It is 2020. And we're still going through these situations where he's now abusing by proxy. He's using ACS to gain access to my house. He's using NYPD to bring me outside so he could verbally assault me. Now with our daughter, he's emotionally and mentally manipulating her every time she goes over there. So now I actually have her in, it's like a blend. It's regular therapy and counseling with psychotherapy sided. So if push comes to shove, they're gonna medicate her because her behavior has gotten so bad with what's happening over there that I do it before she goes outside and grows up and has to be put down by the same people set to serve us. And it's not like he sees an issue with this, he's using her as a vice. And these agencies aren't seeing a problem because they still come. They see my charts, they see where it's a 6 to 7 month pattern with him, where he'll call in and make a report, oh, there's no food here. I got 4 refrigerators in my house. I got a fridge in the garage. He'll claim that she has nowhere to sleep. She has a playroom, my room, anyone else's room. She has space. Like, anyone who knows me, you see me on social media, it's not for show. I spoil my kids. I think I do more for my kids than some people 3 times my age have done for theirs. He'll allege that she's being abused here. If me putting my kids into charter school, having them get private tutors, keeping them busy and being home with them is abuse, then charge me. And they come in and they're forced to do the investigation. They're investigating other people who live in my house. When you work healthcare, you can't have ACS allegations because they're looking at me like something's wrong with me. I can't work with patients.
Right.
Not to mention that blackballs me.
Yeah.
I can't prove myself once they start looking at my record and they see all these calls. Then it's like, are you bringing this drama to the healthcare system? I had to pay a lawyer to get half that stuff erased, and here we are again. I'm going back through it. I go to the courts. I'm denied orders of protection because I have to be a level of physically abused. I just had to terminate my whole legal team that were narcissistic men and hire a team of women to get the work done. And it's disgusting that this is something that it could have been fixed if they took care of it the right way and assessed it properly. We need lawyers in the courts that are court appointed that are trained in trauma and domestic violence.
Yeah.
We need a DV unit to come to these scenes when they're called, not general officers. They need to be screened. If they have a trace of abuse in their history, they shouldn't be on the force.
No.
Especially when these officers are pretty much given the right to decide if it's worth a report. When they came to my house last month, it was 4 SUVs, 8 officers, blocked off my corner, like I was smuggling immigrants. And my children are looking like, what's going on? Are they coming for you? And they're screaming and crying. Officers come into my house, hands on their weapon, alleging a wellness check.
Yeah.
What wellness check brings 8 officers? And only 1 had a body camera on. We have a serious problem from NYPD straight up to the court level, especially with these judges that they feel they hear the story so much. I had a judge removed because I caught her on camera. I walked in, my phone was like this, and I recorded her laughing at my complaints. She refused to issue the order of protection. She's no longer working. We have to take steps like this now because they're not taking it seriously. And unfortunately, the way that these laws are set, it's like they'll pit the abuser and the victim against each other to see who kills who first, so they don't have to do the work. Like, even when I get the calls from people in your position where they want to get certain seats, that's cool and all, but what's going to happen when y'all get there? What are y'all going to do for us? Because I already confronted 2 out here. We're not going to buff your position so you can sleep on us when you get there. So I'm only hoping that when you do get your seat, that you don't forget all this here.
Let me just say that. Thank you. And Shivani and I met through her incident that she was just describing to us. I happened to be on Shanice's page, and then Shanice made a comment, and I just started looking at the live, and I was appalled by what I saw. Her abuser, her daughter's father, was allowed to stay on the block, sit in his car while she was interrogated. No one wanted to take a report. I'm not going to rehash it, but that's how I came into contact with her. And then she was speaking to me about her issue more in depth. And don't think I've forgotten about you, because I have not. But this pandemic has really, and it is not even making an excuse, but the court systems are so behind because of this pandemic that domestic violence, for some reason, is not being taken in account the way it should be. And so I can honestly, and this is being recorded, right?
Yes.
Shanice, this is being recorded. I'm a woman of my word and my integrity. I have no intentions of taking a seat and not bringing my community along. I am going to work for all people. And definitely, I am you. I am you. And so this job is not about me getting power. My job is to help people. And that's what I've always done. I've been a public servant before I even knew what a public servant really was. So I'm saying to you, don't give up on me, and I want you to hold me accountable.
Oh yeah, we planning.
And I have no problem with that.
We planning. This is why we bringing people to the table now.
This is why I'm part of the coalition now, because again, coalitions start when people come together with an idea, and then we plan on how we get that idea to other people who can make it into laws, into policy. So I'm happy to be a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So everyone heard.
You heard it and it's recorded.
That's right. So I met Ms. Simpson through a young lady named Brandy that I pretty much grew up with. And Brandy was like, you know, come on this Zoom, and I was on it and I was like, ooh, okay, I'm feeling this, you know. So from there, Ms. Simpson is on my Facebook page, and I pretty much paid close attention. She also needed some things, and as everybody know, if I have it, I'm going to give. And when I say I'm gonna give, I'm a woman of my word as well. So that's what I did. It might not be a lot, but it was something.
But it was helpful, and it helped other people. So I graciously appreciate everything that you donated.
Thank you. You're welcome. So Ms. Wanda is letting us know certain things. She said that when a call is made according to NYPD, you want to read it, Ms. Wanda, or you want?
Oh, okay. So according to NYPD regulations, I'm not saying this happens all the time, because as we know, they do not follow their own regulations. When a domestic violence call comes through, the DV unit is supposed to go out and address that issue, not the regular officers. Now, of course, that doesn't always happen. So we need to strengthen that. That's on the books. Why is it not happening? Why does Shabana have a situation where you have the regular officers show up? They more than likely don't have the proper training for a DV situation, and then it's handled improperly. And so that's, you know, and so, you know, we're having these conversations and identifying, I hope somebody take notes, identify areas where there are gaps in service, where there's gaps in service, and what needs to be done to strengthen. I think that's where the focus have to be on how can we strengthen these laws. Absolutely. You know, because women are, and men are abused too. You got 6 million women annually reported cases, but you also have 3 million men annually reported cases. So there is an issue of violence in the family. And I'm not going to say mostly, because DV is across the board, but my focus is my communities, communities of color. There is an issue of violence in families and communities of color. So the root cause of the problem need to be looked at. Why is there so much violence in the family?
Right.
You know, and it goes back to what Sheba said, racism. Racism determines your housing, your income, your education. Everything is impacted by racism. And that it contributes, those are the social causes of violence in the family.
Absolutely.
And also, and also people, it's generational, right, Miss Wanda? It is, the abuser was abused and he becomes the abuser, right? It's an ongoing cycle. And I just want to just put a pin in that for a minute.
And that could be changed if it's addressed.
If it's addressed, right? But it's not addressed in a way that it really helps anyone, right? We have these programs, they're required to go for 6 months to a year. They do everything that they're supposed to do, and they get these certificates that say, now I'm a recovered abuser, and then we see what happens. I saw a story where a man killed his first wife, went to jail, came back, joined the church, met the pastor's daughter. The pastor gave his blessing for him to marry his daughter. He not only killed the daughter, he killed the children, and sat there waiting for the police to come and get him.
Well, he clearly had issues.
So,
Word.
but this was a man that they said was healed from his abuse, right?
Wow.
And so we have to really be serious about the laws that we place and the people that show up when we make these phone calls, because clearly, as with Shavania's situation, none of them had any background or training in domestic violence, because
Right.
the questions they were asking her and the way they were questioning her in front of her children
Mhm.
was
wrong.
clearly no training, because anyone who knows that children should not be in a place where the parent is being questioned about a situation, especially when it's dealing with their other parent. And so these are the things that need to be addressed. And Ms. Wanda said something else that made plenty of sense. You said that there are 6 million women, 3 million men who are dealing with domestic violence, and no one is showing up in meetings like this, though. The domestic violence people from the NYPD. We should have people in these meetings right along with us, because we are saying that we want to create a coalition, but we need to have all parties that deal with this involved from the ground up, because
Gotta
that's
invite them. Gotta invite them.
Right. So
that's a
got the
vested
big
interest
unit.
in
Wait.
it.
right. So hold on, Ms. Wanda. So this is not our first rodeo right now. We are
I know it's not.
we are putting the pieces together, and like I asked the ladies, if you know someone in Queens, bring them. Add more people. Let's get this conversation going. Let's have NYPD. Sure, not a problem. Let's have Senator. Let's have these people in, so that way they can understand and hear our stories. But I don't want to go too far into that just yet. I want to be able to get into, I think, our last two speakers, which is Ms. Joanna and Ms. Wanda, if you would like to share as well. Let's bring their stories out, and why they are with the coalition, why they so passionate about this as well. Joanna, you can speak, please. Unmute yourself. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Shanice, I might have to jump off because I got a meeting at 8 o'clock that I gotta prepare.
Okay.
Maybe you go first,
Um,
Miss Wanda.
Yeah, let me just,
Okay.
I prefer to talk about what I'm doing now, not so
Mhm.
much the story, you
Mhm.
know, because that's not going to help anybody on this call. I want to focus on what I'm doing now. I am a visual artist, and I have started an art organization to help women heal using visual art to help them heal from trauma. Now, it worked for me. I am a survivor. And I don't like to re-traumatize myself with keep rehashing the story over and over. So I don't talk about it. I survived it. I moved on. I'm thriving, and I'm good. So my thing is to advocate for other women, to let them know that I understand, because I've been there. I understand what it's like to love someone and that person hurt you, whether it's physically or psychologically. And so as a visual artist, I go to shelters, I do group art, can't do that now, but Art Transform was doing that. And what we do is we allow people to transform trauma by creating art. Things that are difficult to talk about is much easier to draw or to write. Joanne and I have worked together for a while, and she's a writer. They can write about it, or you can paint about it. And some people feel like, oh, I don't know how to do art. But when you sit down and focus, you can create art about bringing out your emotions. And so that's what Art Transforms does. We also do workshops on domestic violence, intimate partner violence, teenage dating violence, elder abuse, male victimization, because it's not just women. When you talk about domestic violence, you just see a face of a woman, but there are men out there that have been murdered, just like women have been murdered. So we do a workshop on male victimization. And pretty much that's what we do. I put the website in the chat, and I have to jump off. I mean, this has really been stimulating and quite informative, and so nice to meet you, Sheba. Good luck with your campaign. But I'm gonna have to go. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Melissa, do you have to go as well? Or you
Yes, I have to get going as well. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure
on
meeting
your
you,
break.
ladies.
Bye,
Okay.
Melissa.
Thank
See you
you.
soon. You know, I'll call you. Okay. So I know she was on her break at work, so she wanted to get on really quickly. So Joanna, thank
Yes.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
So my name is Joanne. You know, I work on different occasions with Mr. Shanice and Wanda, and I'm a survivor of domestic violence as well. And like Wanda mentioned earlier, I'm an author, and I'm also the founder of Beyond the Abuse Incorporated. And what we do, we try to empower the survivors, giving them tools to move on. We do like empowerment workshops. We focus on their self-esteem to build them up. You know, career builder workshop, resume workshop, and we at the same time, as of course, we focus on the abusing part, trying to bring awareness on the topic and make sure, you know, to prevent somebody else from going through it as much as possible. And and of course, you know, I'm very excited to be part of the coalition. My story about my story, I guess, what I can say, my main focus will what really helped me getting out my situation is my son. He's currently 9, and seeing him going through all the ups and lows, and you know, having my ex-husband attempted killing me in front of him, and realizing that this wasn't gonna stop him. So I didn't want him to keep having to live this thinking it's normal, and you know, and once he get older, repeating the same action. So I had to get up, and also I realized that um, him being that young and being in the house wasn't gonna stop him from doing whatever he was gonna do to me. So you know, so I got out. We look for help. We still currently in therapy because especially for him, he has a lot of anxiety and PTSD and anger issue. He got a little bit better in managing his anger, but it's all things that he's still dealing with. So he still goes to group therapy and individual therapy. And I guess I needed to put this out. He just got evaluated last week, and they were telling me that how bad his anxiety got, even with the whole COVID situation. And they were saying, you know, I needed to kind of like be intervene right away, because he started having like real bad hard time managing the anxiety. Think like, you know, something gonna happen to me and I'm gonna go out and not coming one day. So
Wow.
but um anyway, so me, I guess regarding the correlation, it's I mean, it's two things that are really close to my heart. First, I guess having my son in the situation and going through the court system which I know a lot of people are disagreeing with me, but as a mom, I felt like you need to have more power in deciding what you think is best for your child, because a lot of situation they forcing these children, basically imposing to them to be seeing the other person, when as a mother, like inside of you, this is not what is good for your son right now. I mean, I always say when I share my story, we were blessed enough because of our situation, I guess, and the judge, and I don't know, maybe it was just being blessed. We were granted a 10 years other protection, but that's not a lot of women's story, because they have to keep going, and then they have to deal with visitation. And I know for sure, because I heard it, even when it's supervised visitation, I heard stories where the abusers, they get so familiar with the person who's supposed to supervise the visit, they ended up being alone with the child. And as the other parents, you have no control over this, because it's something that's mandated by the court, and they basically harming your child, and you have to sit around and watch your child suffering, and have to pick up the pieces afterward. And it's something I'm very strong about. I know, like, I get hit with it a lot of time, because people don't understand, like, because me, I wanted my son, because I'm the one who live with him every day. I'm the one, that the school call every time he got an outburst, and I have to drop everything and go, figure it out, taking him to therapy, trying to have him involved in everything. So I'm the one basically, like, that knows him and know what he's going through. So why now I have to agree with a judge decision, and then harming my child, and you're not here in the house every day, knowing like that nightmare that I'm living.
Right.
And on the other side, people don't really, understand that part. They like, okay, the child need both parents, which I agree with, but only if that other parent really care about that child as much as you do. And the other thing also, I feel like it's more a prevention, um so kind of like having more talk, like with the teenagers, and like started at an early age, even with my son age, because now, like, living all of this, is very aware of what abuse is, what to do, because I sit him down and talk to him, because like we're in this situation together. So maybe kind of like started earlier with the children, and make them realize that, okay, this is acceptable behavior and this is not acceptable behavior. Even like with consent, if somebody tell you no, no, no is no. Like, I don't want to play with you now. Like, it's fine, I don't want to play with you, but don't have a tantrum, because like little stuff like that. But started putting in their mind and building the mind has, like, you need to eat healthy, you need to exercise, but at the same time, that you cannot force somebody to like play with you if they don't want to play with you. I know it sounds silly, but like things like that.
But
So,
is
yeah.
it no, I mean, the only way it's going to sound silly to people who don't understand. We as mothers and who've gone through DV, it does affect the children. Like my daughter have an anger issue, and I tried to leave my situation early in the game. But she was, like y'all heard me say over and over again, I was 3 years old when she saw me on the floor hit by her father, and I would try to leave then. But in the process of that, you have some parents that will constantly talk negative about the other. It's just an ongoing situation, especially when people just want to be disrespectful, rude, or hate, or whatever issue they have with the other parent, they just want to keep stuff going, and our poor children or go or caught up in the mix. So I do have a question here. It says, what is the process of advocating for legislation to be passed through the city council? And thank you, Joanne. No, you're on mute.
Can you say it again to me, for me, Shanice?
Sure. So what is the process of advocating for legislation to be passed through city council?
Show up to city hall. Show up to city hall. Tell them your council person, who for me is the Bill Perkins. Whoever is your city council person, you contact them. You contact the community board, but you also show up to city hall. That is a public space where you can tell your story and demand that they do something about domestic violence, because it is not protecting us the way it should be.
Absolutely. So that is one of our solutions, or one of our solutions is showing up as a group and
As
show
a coalition,
right
yes, as a coalition,
and speak on our concerns on DV.
you can have the same way you created that beautiful PowerPoint is the same way we could look at the legislation on domestic violence and see and look at the holes in it, and then fill in what we think should be the alternative.
Right.
Because everything starts with a thought, and then it's written down, and then it is voiced, right? And then there are people like us, and it doesn't need to be 20, 30 people. 2 people can make enough noise. And when I say noise, I'm not saying like yelling and screaming, but for me, when I meet someone who wants something from me, I listen to their idea. Is it concise? Is it thoughtful? Is it succinct in how they want whatever they're asking me to do, or what they want to do? Is it organized? And so you're more inclined to listen to people who you believe have planned what they want to say and do. It's always like this. This is what I tell people. When you see a problem, you need to come with a solution. Even if that solution is not going to be the one that is used, at least the person you're coming to can say, oh, they thought of something. Mm-hmm. When you come to your city council person, it shouldn't be, what are you going to do?
Right.
It always should be a collaborative thought. How can we help more women be protected from domestic violence and intimate partner abuse?
Here we go. So that is our goal. That is something that we are going to put in place.
Shanice, you're low.
And that is something that we're going to put in place. That is something that we're going to definitely work on. This is not, like, once again, I said, this is not my first. Why is my voice low? My husband is saying the same thing. Everybody's saying it's low. Okay. Do y'all hear me good? No?
No.
Oh, goodness gracious. I don't know. No, my microphone is good. Do you hear me good? No? Okay, so it is 8:10.
Now you sound better. Now that you want to close the meeting.
Oh my goodness. I was basically saying that this is not going to be our last rodeo, like I mentioned before.
No.
We are definitely going to come together. I've been down to City Hall, so I know when it come down to problems, you got to come up with some solutions. And this is one of the things that I spoke to the ladies about last week. This was our problem. Their story is their problem. I cannot tell their story because that's your story. The best person can tell your story is you. So also come up with a solution. I have one solution, whereas before I get married or before I lay up with somebody, maybe I could go online and look up David so-and-so, have you been convicted of domestic violence? And it will actually show. And before I say I do, I won't because I already looked this person up. So that is one of the things that I want to bring to the table that I keep underneath me because I don't need nobody stealing my idea. But I do want to, I definitely want to bring that to the upfront. I do want to, I really want to bring that out. And what can we do? Can we come up with an app? What do we need to do? So I'm definitely want to work on that. And I do want to say thank you to everyone who came on. I basically like to do our Zooms. If you don't get enough information about the Zoom, honey, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks. So Miss Sheba Simpson, I want to say thank you to everyone, yourself. I hope you be able to come back on again with us. And thank you for letting us share our story with you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate every last one of you. And again, this is not my last meeting with you. I'm going to now. I'm gung ho in researching and finding out ways and figuring out how we can get this work done.
Okay. That's
because this is a crisis in our city.
Absolutely.
It really is. A 30% spike, unacceptable.
Right.
And heartbreaking.
Absolutely. Yep. So we're going to gather again, and I want to say thank you once again. I see
You're
y'all
welcome.
real soon. I appreciate it. Everyone have a good night and stay safe out there, please.
You too.
Amen.
Good night.
Good night.